Okay, I'll admit it. When you suggested my life, I kind of gulped. That's a serious commitment. But, that's what we do here. Dive deep.
Yeah, it is a hefty book. But, that's Bill Clinton for you. A life packed with, well, life. But it's not just the sheer volume of stuff that happened. It's how those personal bits connect to his politics later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like those early years were shaping a worldview, right? Like that story about his grandfather's store.
Oh, yeah, the one in Hope, Arkansas. It wasn't just about selling groceries, was it? More like building community.
And that whole thing about extending credit, especially to black families who were struggling.
It seems to have made a huge impression on young Bill.
It makes you think, right? Did that experience plant the seed for his beliefs in social safety nets? Like years later, his support for food stamps.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Those early influences.
Totally. And it's not just policies either. It's like you can trace specific stuff back to his childhood. I mean, growing up at Hope without his father.
Tragic that, dying before Bill was even born.
Must have left a mark. Clinton talks about that sense of responsibility she felt, even as a kid, having to step up for his family.
Like he had to be the provider. Maybe that's why he was so focused on economic policies later on, helping working families.
Maybe. And speaking of Hope, isn't it wild that his childhood friend from there ended up being Vince Foster?
Talk about a bond that lasted through school, through life, even ending up together in the White House.
Must have been incredible for both of them, having that shared history during those intense years in Washington.
Definitely. Everyone needs someone they can truly trust, right? Especially in that pressure cooker.
Absolutely. But let's jump ahead a bit. Clinton moves to Hot Springs. What a change of pace that must have been.
Hot Springs was a whole different world. Bustling resort town, thermal baths, and let's just say a bit more lively.
That prank call story, right? To Maxine Jones's establishment. Come on, you got to admit, it's kind of funny.
Okay, yeah, I chuckled. You can see that youthful energy, the charisma that would later win over crowds.
Totally. But mischief aside, he was busy in high school, student government, theater, even playing sax in a band.
Clearly a bright kid, driven, wanted to make something of himself. But there's this one event, the Billy Graham Crusade in Little Rock. That seems like a turning point.
1958, right? Racial tensions were boiling over, especially in Little Rock.
And here's Billy Graham, this huge religious figure, taking a stand. No segregated crusade, he says. Everyone's welcome. Black, white, everyone.
Wow, can you imagine the impact of that?
Oh.
Young Bill seeing that firsthand? The power of that message.
Must have been a defining moment. You can see how it solidified his commitment to racial equality, which of course became a cornerstone of his politics.
From small town Hope to Hot Springs, and this pivotal moment with Billy Graham, it's like each experience was building on the last.
Like watching someone assemble a puzzle, piece by piece, and those early pieces, those formative years, really set the stage for the leader he'd become.
And speaking of leadership, the journey continues, right? From Arkansas to Georgetown, then Oxford.
Imagine those late-night talks at Oxford in the 60s. The world was changing so fast.
Vietnam War, the civil rights movement, everything in upheaval.
Clinton was right in the thick of it. And you can see how it shaped his political thinking.
And then there's that story about Frank Aller, his roommate at Oxford. Brilliant guy, opposed the war, just like Clinton.
Sad story, really. Drafted, resisted, stayed in England, didn't end well.
A real reminder of the tough choices people faced back then. Clinton struggled with his own feelings about the draft too, right?
Yeah, he had deferments, but you can tell he was torn. It was a heavy time.
And then, amidst all that turmoil, he meets Hillary Rodham at Yale Law School.
Sparks flew. Two brilliant legal minds, united by a passion for social justice.
And their journey together takes them back to Arkansas.
Where Clinton's political career really takes off.
Back to Arkansas he goes, ready to jump into politics. But it wasn't all sunshine and roses right from the start.
Well, there was that first congressional race. Didn't exactly go his way.
Yeah, a loss right out of the gate. But hey, he seemed to learn from it.
Definitely. Bounced back, became Arkansas Attorney General, and then boom, 1978, youngest governor in state history.
Pretty impressive, though even as governor, there were bumps in the road. I love that wallpapering story, the one with Hillary.
Oh yeah, classic. Paste everywhere, Hillary's not too thrilled.
Yeah.
Proof that even future presidents can mess up a DIY project.
Keeps it real, right? And then there's that time he ends up sleeping in his pickup truck after one too many pina coladas.
At his brother-in-law's place, no less. That story tells you a lot about Clinton. Liked to have a good time, knew how to connect with folks.
Made him relatable, maybe. But let's be clear, he wasn't all fun and games. As governor, he dealt with some serious stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Education reform, economic development, laying the groundwork for his future presidential platform.
And not shying away from the tough stuff either.
Yeah.
The Cuban refugee crisis at Fort Chaffee, that was a real test.
For sure. Then, of course, there was that surprise loss in the 1980 governor's race. Had to sting.
Definitely a setback. But once again, he showed that resilience. Didn't let it keep him down.
Back in the saddle by 82. Winning the governorship again, you almost wonder if those losses, those tough times, made him a stronger leader.
It's possible. Gave him a deeper understanding of people's needs, maybe? Sharpened his political instincts?
And then all those experiences, the wins, the losses, the personal stuff, it all plays into his decision to run for president in 92.
The economy wasn't doing so hot back then. And Clinton, he felt like he had what it took to get America back on track.
New Democrat. That's how he pitched himself. Blending liberal and conservative ideas, trying to appeal to a wide range of voters.
But man, it was a tough campaign. Up against the incumbent, George H.W. Bush. And then there was Ross Perot.
Oh, yeah, Perot. Independent candidate, shook things up, tapped into that voter frustration with the whole political system.
Pulled votes from both sides. And then on top of all that, Clinton had to deal with those personal controversies swirling around.
Rumors about his personal life, questions about his past, definitely threatened to derail things. He had to face it head on. Remember that 60 Minutes interview?
With Hillary right there beside him. Talk about a defining moment. Transparency, addressing those concerns, showing a united front.
Powerful stuff. Voters connected with it, and despite all those hurdles, he pulled it off. Beat both Bush and Perot to become the 42nd president.
What a win. Political savvy, connecting with people, pure determination. It all came together.
And suddenly there he is, on the world stage, a whole new set of challenges and opportunities ahead.
A presidency full of big wins, but also plenty of controversy. Economic boom times mixed with political battles.
From navigating tricky foreign policy situations to those domestic issues like healthcare, never a dull moment.
Okay, so we've gone from Hope, Arkansas to the White House. Now it's time to look at the Clinton presidency itself. Wow, where do we even start?
It's a fascinating mix, really. You see this blend of progressive goals, but also this real knack for practical politics. Take NAFTA, for instance.
Yeah, NAFTA. Big trade deal. Lots of debate, lots of strong opinions on both sides.
Huge controversy. But Clinton's argument was that for the economy, for growth, it was essential.
And not just that, right? He saw it as part of a bigger picture, strengthening ties with Mexico and Canada. That whole North American partnership thing.
A bold move, for sure. And while we're talking bold moves on the world stage, how about the Oslo Accords?
Oh, man. Those images of Rabin and Arafat shaking hands. Historic.
Bringing them together, the Israeli prime minister and the PLO chairman. Clinton really pushed for that, believed in dialogue, even between enemies.
You could feel the hope, right? Like maybe this time peace had a chance.
Monumental, really.
That.
Showed Clinton's commitment to diplomacy. But of course, not every intervention went so smoothly. Somalia, for example.
Yeah, Somalia. Complicated situation, to say the least. And ultimately, a tragedy.
Heartbreaking. Losing American soldiers there. It showed just how tough those peacekeeping missions can be.
The best intentions sometimes just not enough. Back home, Clinton had his own set of battles. That whole healthcare reform push.
Ambitious, wasn't it? In the end, it didn't make it through Congress. But you see that determination. Even facing powerful opposition, he kept pushing for what he thought was right.
And hey, let's not forget the economy. Balanced budget, that was huge. Hadn't been done in ages.
Right. And those economic policies, combined with, how the global situation was playing out, well, it led to real growth. Jobs, prosperity for a lot of people.
The good times weren't always so good, though, right? Remember that government shutdown back in 95?
Oh, man. Tense times. Democrats, Republicans, totally gridlocked. Even a president with Clinton's charm couldn't break through that.
Politics at its messiest, for sure. And then, of course, there were the scandals. Can't talk about the Clinton presidency without them.
Right. Whitewater, the Lewinsky affair, impeachment. The whole thing really overshadowed a lot of what he accomplished.
Turbulent, to say the least. It's important to keep in mind, though, we're looking at this through Clinton's lens, right? His book, his perspective.
Absolutely. Lots of different viewpoints out there on all of that. People got to draw their own conclusions.
But even with all the drama, there were these moments that showed Clinton's human side. Remember that story about the phone call with Boris Yeltsin?
Oh, yeah. Late night, Yeltsin's joking, "You're a disaster." It's like even on the world stage, he could connect with people.
Not afraid to be a little informal, build those relationships. Humor goes a long way sometimes.
Absolutely. And then, of course, there were those moments of real tragedy. the Oklahoma City bombing.
Horrible. Just awful. You really saw Clinton's empathy then. The way he spoke to the nation helped everyone grieve.
A true leader in a crisis. And then the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin, after all that work on the peace process.
Devastating. For Clinton personally, but also for that whole idea of peace in the Middle East.
You could hear it in his eulogy for Rabin, the grief, but also that commitment to keep fighting for what Rabin believed in.
Even in the face of such darkness.
Yeah.
There's that glimmer of hope, the human spirit pushing forward.
And so we come to the end of the Clinton presidency. A mixed bag, no doubt, incredible achievements, but also deep controversies.
A complex legacy. But one thing's for sure. Bill Clinton was a captivating figure. Left his mark on history.
My Life gives us a peek behind the curtain, right? The man, not just the president. What shaped him, the struggles, the victories.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, it's your turn. Did reading My Life change how you see Bill Clinton? Give you a new perspective on things? Something to think about, isn't it?